AI is true amplifier. Now AI can amplify your creativity. It can amplify your access to opportunities and solutions. There's other side of the coin. If you never examined your assumptions, your beliefs, and you're still running on the system that was meant for the world that is no longer exist, what will happen, AI will actually amplify your dysfunction.
I love that. AI amplifies both your functional skills and dysfunction.
It sounds like you're very accomplished, intelligent, good at what you do. And then there is still this inner critic voice.
I knew this was going to be therapy. And it leads me to my favorite line in your book. The leadership approach that built my career is destroying it. How can leaders become more self-aware of those moments when my operating system needs an update?
First, I would invite for every leader to ask themselves, what am I most proud of as a leader? Within that, we will identify your strength, the strength that got you from individual contributor to the leadership role. But what happens if we use that strength blindly without any examination? That strength becomes liability.
Welcome to Speak Arizona, the podcast for professionals ready to elevate their communication and leadership skills. Whether you're speaking to a crowd or leading a team, you'll get practical tips, expert insights, and inspiring stories. Join us as we dive into the craft of powerful communication and authentic leadership. Speak Arizona is powered by District 3 Toastmasters. Subscribe and take the next step to becoming the speaker and leader you want to be. Welcome to Speak Arizona, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to find your voice. Hi, I'm your host, Rupesh Parbu. I help technical experts upgrade from being the smartest person in the room to the most influential, one conversation at a time. You've done everything right. You built the career, you've earned the title, and delivered results that most people only read about. So why does leading feel harder than it used to? Why are those instincts that once made you exceptional now creating friction instead of momentum? My guest today has spent 16 years coaching Fortune 500 executives, and what she has discovered about this moment may surprise you. The very approach that got you here is the thing you need to upgrade now. Most leaders never see it coming. She's a professional fellow at the Institute of Coaching McLean Hospital, Harvard Medical School, teaches leadership and innovation at MIT Professional Education, and holds the ICF Master Certified Coach credential, earned by fewer than 1% of coaches worldwide. Her insights on leadership regularly appear in Forbes, and her new book, Leaderwired, the AI Leadership Playbook for transforming how you think, decide, and lead, is out now. Please help me welcome Anna Barnhill. Anna, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rupesh. Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. Very excited to have this conversation. The topic of leadership, the topic of AI is such a huge passion of mine that I can't wait to dive in.
Same. I am so excited. Before we dive into Leaderwired, your book, I want to hear a little bit about you. Tell us your story.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my professional career actually started in change management. So I was working on creating quality management systems and help companies adopt those. And what I found out during that time, that you can have the best technology, you can have the right strategy, the great software process, but if you don't have right leadership at the helm, if you don't have buy-in of your employees, those initiatives will fail. And that's where I became so passionate and obsessed about the neuroscience, about how we can lead more effectively, how our thinking, our emotions, they all lead to certain decisions. And if we can understand it better, we can actually lead better. So that's how I arrived into becoming an executive coach. And now I work with executives on individual level. I work with executive teams. And ultimately, I work at the system level where I help companies transform their culture.
Thank you. And I have a love-hate relationship with change management. It's when I've done my best work and also when I've made my biggest mistake. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. And one thing I want to start with, in Leaderwired, your book, you write that every leader runs on an internal operating system. And it's this concept that I never really heard or thought about. But as soon as I started reading into your book, I'm like, that is such a great language and word set and description for how we all operate. Can you talk about what internal operating system, how you came up with that term, what it really means in plain language?
I believe that everybody we meet, everybody we work with, it's our student and our teacher. So actually the concept of operational system came from my clients. I work with a lot of engineers, with a lot of tacky people that are brilliant, and they will bring their own lingo into our coaching sessions. And it literally clicked for me. I'm like, okay, just like a phone, just like your laptop, it has software. And from time to time, it literally nudges you to, it's time to upgrade. And I'm like, where else does this show up beyond the phone, beyond technology? It shows up in humans. It shows up in leadership. So think about it. Every person, whether you're in leadership role or not, we have behaviors, we have habits, we have certain things that worked in the past. They led us to success. Therefore, we repeat them because we believe that's what made us successful. And after enough repetition, that becomes a habit. You don't think about it, you just do. And when you have a habit and it happens automatically, at some point it becomes invisible. So now it is literally your operating system that is running how you think, how you feel, how you make decisions, but you don't see it because it becomes part of who you are. And we as leaders don't pause long enough to examine it.
First of all, I love your love for engineers. That is the world, the techie world that I come from. And as you were sharing that story or that explanation, everything you said was hitting and I'll share a quick story. This is going to be a little therapy session for me. As an engineer growing up, I was so passionate about the work and so passionate about the engineers. It's why I run this podcast. I want people to improve. And when I started moving into leadership positions, I always looked at things only from the perspective of the individual contributor, the technical engineer, blah, blah, blah. But as I started moving up into layers, first line management, second line management, I maintain that perspective. Oh, I don't want to be like this boss who didn't appreciate the engineer's time, or I don't want to be like that person. And it became invisible to the point where I remember it was literally a company-wide update during COVID. And they were saying, we're going to have to make some decisions, some difficult decisions, a very unique time in all of our recent history. And I was like, I can't believe we're having to do this. We were going to have to do layoffs. And later, another leader, much later, after I had repeated this habit so many times, this operating system that needed upgrade, a leader stopped me and said, you know, as a leader, second, third line in these leadership and executive positions, yes, you want to represent the engineers, but that's not your only perspective. You are now representative of the company, and we're in the middle of COVID. Like, what's going on for you? You can't be saying this stuff in the middle of a company. I was in India, and it was a company-wide meeting, and it really clicked for me, but it took 2 or 3 or 4 mistakes like that before I had that great leader talk to me about that. And then it clicked. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm no longer this individual contributor. I'm going to champion their story. I need to be more. And I don't mean that I need to be the 100% leader and only care about what the company wants. That's not my values or style. but it couldn't be 100% the other way. So I so connected when I was reading your book. I was thinking about, oh my gosh, all the mistakes.
Yeah, Rupesh. And what you're describing, it's such a universal challenge. That transition from individual contributor and what made you successful and actually got you promoted into the leadership role, and then
Yes.
what level up, right? So therefore you think what I'm doing, this is why I'm successful. Therefore, I have to double down on what I have done in the past to prove that I'm a good leader. And that's where the system breaks, because it's
Oh,
not true.
I knew this was going to be therapy. And it leads me to my favorite line in your book. It's in the first chapter. And it's all about this. The leadership approach that built my career is destroying it. And that hit so hard. And it took me literally years of repeating that old operating system and then having a leader stop me and really have that conversation. And I wish it didn't take that long. And so I'm curious, how can leaders become more aware, more self-aware of those moments when my operating system needs an update?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, everybody feels so busy right now, right? Like when I ask my coaching clients, the executives, how are you doing? They, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I'm overwhelmed. The speed of change, I have to keep up. Therefore, they run into trap of staying tactical, executing, putting fires down, and they don't pause long enough, not only to create strategy for their company. Some leaders do that, which is good. They're already ahead of the most, but pause long enough to examine what got me here may not be the same approach that will take me to the next step. Examine, are there any beliefs that I'm still holding and I believe they are true that actually may be creating a bottleneck for my team? And think about, so things like expertise. So we acquire degrees, right? Then we continue evolving, we continue attending webinars. So we acquire so much knowledge. The leaders I talk to, they can give a training and presentation on delegation and how to listen effectively. But when the pressure is high, when they actually go back into the work environment, then demands so many things of them, all your great intentions of what you wanted to do and how you showing up, they actually go out of the window. That's where the internal automated wiring kicks in. So first, I would invite, in that moment of slowing down and pause, for every leader to ask themselves, what am I most proud of as a leader? Here is why. Within that, we will identify your strength, the strength that got you from individual contributor to the leadership role. But what happens if we use that strength blindly without any examination? We literally push a gas pedal and never let go. So that strength becomes liability. And that's how you can literally uncover the first step of, wow, what can make me successful and made me successful now is potentially limiting myself, limiting my team, and potentially preventing my organization from executing effectively and adopting AI.
Ugh, I mean, I relate to that even in my story so much. My strengths are leading teams, really feeling empathy and empathetic for this teams, understanding what they're doing, but driving change. Like when you said hit the gas pedal. Yes, those who work with me know I love change. I mean, I told you I have a love-hate relationship with change management and improvement and making things better. And all of those strengths without considering the bigger picture and moving those skills into what that looks like as an executive is what I missed. So hearing that conversation, can you say that again? What are your strengths? And then thinking through how that can impact you in a negative way or positive way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because once you ask yourself, what am I most proud of? The answer will come easy. You'll say, well, I never make mistakes. I always know what to do. People come to me to get all the answers. Fantastic. This is great. We don't want to deny that skill set that you have. But the problem becomes when we confuse what we are doing well with who we are. And that becomes our identity. Because if you believe you have all the answers, you can do everything better, whether it's faster or better quality than your people, well, think about the impact. So now you're actually preventing your people from thinking, from maybe bringing their own ideas, from challenging your ideas as a leader. So your strength becomes your ceiling.
Oh, this is so good. And you mentioned earlier too, you were talking about leaders. They know what they should do. I've been to the trainings, I've done the strengths finders and the disc and I had a leadership coach as well. And as you said, I've also been that leader where you couldn't even find a 15-minute block on my calendar to put something in. And so I was so overwhelmed. So how do you help leaders move from that space where they're so tactical, their calendars are so full, they're in meetings all day and then working all night, and they're in those moments where they intellectually know what they should do, but they haven't integrated what they should, they're not doing what they know I guess I don't like to use the word should. That's bad. But they're not integrated in what they know and how they're behaving.
Yeah. And that's another universal human trait, right? Whether you in leadership role or not. Because what I'm noticing, whether it's with my clients or whether when I was teaching leadership and innovation classes at MIT, brilliant leaders, they already achieved a lot of success. Before they even finish training they enrolled in, they're already looking for what's next. The most common question I would get, what is another class you recommend us taking? I'm like, you didn't finish this one. It's like, stop. Acquiring knowledge doesn't translate to transformation and effectiveness. Because so the knowledge, the insight that you get, you're totally right. You already mentioned it. It's cognitive. It's our logical understanding. Makes sense. If I do this, I can be better. But if that was so easy, we wouldn't have addiction, right? People wouldn't smoke. Just understanding something is not good for us does not prevent us engaging in that behavior. Because there is a reason. Any behavior that we have, there is underlying reason of why we're engaging it. It's serving us somehow, just not always in a functional way. So when we talk about this gap between knowing what to do and actually being able to execute, it's not necessarily about knowing more or knowing better. It's actually about practicing differently. And in my book, I introduced the framework and I call it strategic discomfort. So first, if you're trying to change and you're feeling very comfortable, it is not true change. It's not transformation. You're literally just moving pieces of furniture in the same room. You're not changing anything. So starting with the mindset and acceptance that change is supposed to feel this way. It's supposed to feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to be difficult. And if I'm feeling that, it means that I'm actually stepping into the area, the zone that is important, and I'm about to discover what to do about it. If it feels comfortable, it was already solved by you. So it's not change.
I love in my world, it's funny, I love making other people uncomfortable with change, driving technology. In one of the previous episodes with Paul Pastore, I talk about how I brought a bunch of technology into our Toastmasters meetings. And what's insightful here is bringing that discomfort to myself, like putting myself and practicing, like you said, in situations where I am the one feeling that discomfort, because I know that's when the growth happens. It was when I made those mistakes in those meetings, and then I'm uncomfortable because my leadership is asking me to challenge my views about being so employee oriented. And again, that took a long time to do, but I just love these insights about closing that gap, as you said, between the knowledge in the doing. And I teach yoga, so I always talk about integration. It's not just doing the move, but integrating all your presence and being in whatever feeling or embodiment and all the woo stuff that I get into in yoga. But yeah, I love it.
Yeah, well, and that's another huge misconception, right? I hear that a lot too from very techy people. Well, yoga, energy, it's all like a woo-woo stuff that doesn't belong in business. And that's a huge misconception. It's because our body and our mind integration, that what actually leads to most effective leadership, to most authentic leadership, where we don't have to feel like we should be a certain way. And then what I'm observing, executives literally perform leadership. This is how I should show up. This is what I should be doing. The shooting all over themselves is happening, right? And that approach to leadership is extremely draining. It drains you mentally because you're always on high alert of how I should be doing something or saying something. It disconnects you internally from who you are and your values. It drains you, and your people see it. They know when your confidence is performed, not coming from the inside out. So yoga, that's the practice that I would recommend every leader engage in, because it helps you actually in a tactical transition from thinking to embodying.
I'm in Toastmasters. We talk a lot about public speaking and using notes, but that analogy translates to so many other things because you're exactly right. You're showing up in how you should be and you're performing. And I haven't thought about that at the deeper context of leadership. I've thought about that in public speaking, but it's so true. I've met so many leaders. I'm like, it must be so exhausting. I was probably on the other end of the spectrum, being a little too into one side of the equation, the technical teams versus the broader equation. But there's that balance. And yeah, this is really bringing a lot of insight to me and thinking of that analogy of notes in a public speaking or performing in a leadership role.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. And there's one question, one of my favorite questions that I like to ask myself, my clients. If we picked up a pattern, we realize, okay, this is something that is actually a roadblock or a ceiling for me. I would always ask, where else does this show up in your life? And that will uncover so much, because the answer oftentimes is everywhere, because that's the way how you think. It impacts how you feel. Then those emotions impact your decision making, whether you agree with that or not. As a leader, they do. And then you run on that wiring, and it will show up at work and personal life and friendships in the same way.
It's so true. And one of the things that comes to mind in your book, you talk a lot about, I think, a certain type of leader who, as they move into these more executive roles, they start focusing more on certainty and control. And you talked about being detail oriented and expertise. And we've talked a little bit about this already, but what are some other ways to recognize that these strengths are turning into a liability? You said that one question of what are you most proud of? What are other ways to just bring that self-awareness to the forefront?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you two answers. One is the formal one, and that one, well, you can actually take an assessment. So when you read the book, there is a code, and that takes you to the Leaderwired assessment that will literally help you surface what is working and what is limiting your effectiveness. So that's the formal way. Informal way, start observing your team, start observing your people, your employees, and you will learn a lot. You can ask yourself, when was the last time somebody challenged my opinion? When was the last time somebody told me the decision that you're making, I think it is wrong for X, Y, and Z reason? Because what people do will be a mirror, to your leadership effectiveness. because there is a big difference between intention, how we want to lead, right? All the plans of how we want to inspire, empower our team. And then there is the other side of equation, how our people are actually perceiving us as a leader, how they actually receiving us in our communication, and whether it's indeed inspiring and make them feel engaged, or it creates limitations that we don't even see because we only see our intention. We view the world through how we intend to be and do.
Pause, reflect, self-awareness, so important. Anna, I want to change directions just a little bit, but not too much because I think it's so relevant to this conversation. AI is so at the forefront of every facet of technology, personal life, everything. And there's this concern that AI is going to replace certain aspects of the role or leadership. I know people are using AI for all sorts of things. So we're talking about blind spots and questions you can ask that you can reflect on. But what are some techniques and what are some new ways that we can use AI as a tool to amplify our strengths or build clarity or identify those blind spots more than maybe we had a few years ago?
Yeah. Wow, there's actually so much in that question, and it takes my mind in so many directions.
Let's go in all the directions.
Perfect. So first, and I think that one is the most important because it literally takes people attention away from what is possible, is fear of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Is a fear of, will AI take my job away? And what we know from research, we cannot solve problems with that state of mind. I call it below the line, where we start having rigidity in our thinking, in what we see, and we only see problems and what could potentially go wrong. Within that frame, is impossible to make any change. So in a way, we're creating our self-fulfilling prophecy and limitation. So for anybody who is fearing AI, I like to give analogy of fire. Because at some point, we as human beings discovered fire. And some tribes decided to lean in, right? And they're like, wow, that's a great tool. We can keep ourselves warm. We can make meals. So they were advancing society. That's why we're sitting here right now and talk. The other tribes decided to fear fire. They're like, we don't know this tool. We don't know how does it work. We have our own process that worked in the past. We'll keep doing what we knew what to do in the past. And they stayed in the past. So same thing with the AI. AI is software. It was created by humans for humans. And right now, we as human beings have a choice to either learn how to use it to amplify our strength, or we can make a choice to say, I don't want to use this tool, I'm afraid of it. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Indeed, your job will be eliminated.
Wow. Yeah. And I love that analogy of fire because it's so true and so relevant. And I'm curious, as you've been working with leaders and also helping them amplify their strengths with AI, are there any insights or um, things that you're just noticing, trends or tools that you can think of that help people improve leveraging AI?
Yeah. Well, the main thing is AI is true amplifier. And it comes with personal responsibility and ownership, especially if person is in the leadership role. Because if you have clear thinking, if you know how to regulate your emotions, if you truly did the inner work that is required, Now AI can amplify your creativity. It can amplify your access to opportunities and solutions. So it works in your favor. It is serving you. There is other side of the coin. If you haven't done any work internally, if you never examined your assumptions, your beliefs, and you're still running on the system that was meant for the world that is no longer exist, what will happen, AI will actually amplify your dysfunction. So if there are any biases that you're holding on to, in the past, the world moved slower and there was no such a tool as AI. Right now, it will actually challenge you more because you're no longer an expert. So think about AI. It amplified not only physical work, it amplified cognitive work. So literally, instead of going to you as a leader for all the answers, your people can ask Claude or ChatGPT. So it literally threatens your identity if you're running on outdated wiring.
I love that. AI amplifies both your functional
Mm-hmm.
skills and dysfunction.
Oh, yeah.
That is huge. So if a leader is listening right now and suspects they've got some dysfunctions that are being amplified in today's world of working and they have an outdated system, where should they begin?
Well, awareness always precedes choice. So I think it starts with that moment of slowing down and uncovering maybe just one thing through the eyes of your team. Because you can always pick on something. You can maybe say, as a leader, I value collaboration. But if you do a reality check with yourself, you're like, oh, wow, I'm saying I value collaboration, but I actually interrupt my people all the time. Not because I have bad intention, right? Because I get excited about the idea and I just jump in. Well, what are you actually communicating then? So that's the first step. You pick up at one pattern, just one behavior that you identified is not in alignment with that intention. And then you actually welcome it without judgment, because the default pattern would be self-criticism and judgment. I should know better by now, right? So it's awareness, it's acceptance of what is. Well, that's the current state, that's the reality. I can deny it, I can pretend it doesn't exist, or now I can make a conscious choice to do something differently. And then you pick, instead of this old behavior, what do I want to do instead? And that's where the practice begins, over and over and over again.
I like what you said about not judging the things that you're observing. And I'll say it that way, whether they're, we talked about strengths being overdone or observations that you're looking into your team or checking on the mirror of your team, having those reflections back to you. And I think what you said is so important. I just want to emphasize it, not judging it, because it's so easy to go down that path of, as you said, shooting yourself and, oh, I should have done it this way. And I've done that. That's my normal pattern of, when I've made some of these mistakes, you go into the spiral, you get really defensive, and then you waste so much energy processing it in a negative way. And I've made many mistakes in my career. But looking back, that I think is what makes this podcast and this part of my career journey that I'm working on now so fulfilling. Like I'm falling in love with all of the mistakes that I made because they lead me to these conversations and I feel so connected with them. And then I feel connected to other people because I know they're going through the same thing. So I just wanted to emphasize that I love that point about not judging the reflections that you're seeing. They're just data. It's just information. You shouldn't need to feel a certain way about it. I talked about this in an earlier podcast as well. In Toastmasters, we have a can and we throw marbles in it when someone says And initially, I was very, especially with guests or new people or English as a second, third, fourth language people, I was feeling that it was rude. And then I thought about it a little more and I was like, it's just feedback. We tell people this is what's going to happen. And it's just information. You're hearing a noise every time you say our. There's nothing personal. It's that person's job to throw a marble in a bucket when they hear or And how you take, I was very, as you're hearing, I'm very empathetic to the team's needs. And I was like, no, that's, these are new people. We don't want to hurt them that way. But then as I reflect on it more, and as have conversations with you and others, I'm reminding myself, don't judge that. Okay, I had 4 ums. That's 4 ums. That's all that is. It's feedback. It's information. It's not, oh, you had 4 ums and you're a horrible public speaker and you shouldn't be coaching people and that happens. And so I want to emphasize that this is just information. Yeah. And that's where you grow, not taking it to these other places where you judge yourself for the information that you're collecting.
So powerful. And asking yourself a question, what would hurt my people more, right? The immediate short-term discomfort of realizing that they said it 5 times, or them not knowing that that's the biggest opportunity that can help them grow, and I'm taking it away from them.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Anna, we've talked about so many topics: AI, leadership, self-awareness, empowering embodied presence, and not performing and shoulding. Is there anything you wanted to touch on your book, on AI, that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, first, I would invite every leader who is going through change, is going through AI transformation, and we will all go through it. Some already do. Some will be assigned it in a few months. It's coming. To actually pick up the book and read it. There is so much really good information and reflection that will help them to slow down and actually welcome that exploration with curiosity. On the other side, if that feels like a huge undertaking because they're so busy, I would invite them to actually find me on LinkedIn. Just put my name, Anna Barnhill. You can find me there, connect with me, and subscribe to my newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter. So you literally spend 5 minutes every week learning something about yourself, learning some helpful prompt to help you collaborate with AI better. And those little nuggets, they accumulate. And week after week, months later, you will actually start recognizing yourself better. You'll start understanding yourself better, and you will lead more effectively.
Thank you. So good. So are you ready for our rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. First one, what book, article, or podcast has inspired you recently?
Ooh, great one. For me, it's a podcast. I watch it every week, and the name is Moonshots by Peter Diamandis. Amazing, forward-looking, and if anybody fears AI, watch that because it actually amplifies hope and what we can do differently as a creator, not a consumer.
What is your biggest public speaking pet peeve or one thing you wish public speakers would stop doing?
Oh, goodness. Reading. Like literally either reading their script or memorizing their script. Because what happens, it truly disconnects you from the audience and it makes you locked in prison in your head. So if you don't pick the right word that you memorized, you turn into self-shame and criticism mode, and that kills everything. Prepare, but just step in and be you because you have done enough.
That is so good. And I like what you said about memorizing because sometimes, the less skilled speakers will read, but memorizing is that same sort of thing. You've got it here, but you haven't integrated. You haven't embodied. It's not in your presence. So that nuance is really important, and I hadn't thought about it that way. Yeah. What is your go-to way to collaborate? Do you like email, in-person, Zooms, Teams, Slack? How do you like to get things done?
I love in person. I think there is nothing can replace that energy that you have in the same room. And if it's not possible, Zoom. I would still love video. Texting and anything where you don't see a human face and their body language, it just feels inauthentic to me.
So true. And so much of communication is nonverbal.
Yes.
It's important to be in that embodied presence.
Mm-hmm.
What was your last major public speaking gig and what did you learn from it?
Oh, okay. So last one was last month. I was doing the keynote at the Chamber of Commerce in Medford, and I was actually presenting my new book, Leaderwired. So that was very, very interesting experience that also reconfirmed what I just said earlier, that embodied presence, whether it's a one-on-one conversation, whether it's a team building activity with 20 leaders, or whether it's a huge room with over 300 executives, that same embodied experience carries you through.
Absolutely. Oh, that's such a great learning. Last one. We're a public speaking podcast. What's one piece of advice you'd give to a new public speaker?
Ooh, okay. I give it to everybody because I think it's so powerful. It comes from sports psychology. So, anxiety and excitement. On physiology level, there is no difference in terms of what our body is experiencing. It's that butterflies, jitters. The only difference is here interpretation that we make, whether we anticipating positive outcome or negative outcome. So before you go on the stage, before you have some type of public speaking event, ask yourself, what am I excited about, not anxious? That's the most powerful shift. And it's so simple.
Oh, where can people connect with you, learn more about you, get your book, get coaching sessions? How can people reach out to you?
Absolutely. So few ways. I have two websites. One is leaderwired.com and another one is annabarnhill.com. So literally go on both websites. You can learn about me, about my services, coaching. If you go on Leaderwired, you will see there are a few new exciting things coming up. And one will be Ask Anna, which is literally where I uploaded everything that I know, literally uploading my brain into AI and creating a coaching experience for those leaders who maybe cannot afford my services. So I want to democratize coaching. And another exciting thing is Leaderwired Institute that is coming up in a few months. And that one is the only training that I know of that will help leaders bridge the gap between knowing, acquiring more knowledge, to actually embodying and creating their own authentic leadership playbook.
Oh, so many exciting things. So again, that book is Leaderwired, the AI-Era Leadership Playbook for transforming how you think, decide, and lead. I'm so excited for you. I'm going to go try out some of those resources myself. Thank you so much for your time, Anna. I so appreciate this conversation. It's been a little bit of therapy and a lot of insight.
Thank you so much, Rupesh. It was a delightful conversation. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks. And thank you all listeners for tuning in. If you want to hear more, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, we encourage you to speak Arizona.